шаттл прошел горизонт, опускается вниз, и дальность 615 футов.
This low light level black and white camera mounted in the payload bay of the orbiter looking directly at the space station as Atlantis tracks now in front of and below the station, continuing the slow circle. It should be completing the fly around of the station in the next 20 minutes or so. The Mir Space Station now with 6 modules, including the core module or the Mir core module, the Cavant 1 and Cavant 2 modules, the Crystal module to which Atlantis was docked throughout the docked phase of the mission, the newest science module, the Spectre module, and now the newest module that Atlantis delivered to the station, the docking module, which will be used for all future shuttle dockings. Soyuz capsule on the left of the station, which was used to transport Yuri Gudzenko, Sergei Avdeyev, and Thomas Ryder to the station on September 3rd, will be used by those three on February 29th to return to Earth following their mission.
Now we are in for commenting what we just observed. we saw several objects casually flying by the Mir station and the shuttle. The Mir core module is about 13 meters long and 4 or 5 meters in diameter. The images you see now were not used in our main analyses because the video is too degraded, but one can still see more anomalies traveling by. According to the model, the estimated distance from Atlantis to Mir is 285 meters. It believes most of the objects that cross our field of view is more than 1 meter long. The characteristics of the objects do not conform to what we could encounter. Not ice particles. Ice particles or insulation flakes typically tumble, flicker, and change brightness due to their irregular surfaces catching sunlight at different angles. These objects remain uniform in intensity with no rotation or irregular movement across frames. Not jet ice particles. RCS firings produce visible plumes, cones, or puffs, none of which are seen. Additionally, such particles would radiate from a known point, e.g. the shuttle body, but these objects appear already in motion, not nearby debris or dust, close to the camera. Not outgassing events. Outgassing creates diffuse clouds or drifting semi-transparent plumes, not clearly bounded persistent lights. The objects here are compact, bounded, and visibly modular, suggesting structured form, not gaseous dispersion. Not micrometeoroids. Micrometeoroids move extremely fast, often invisible or showing only streaks if caught at all. These objects move slowly and steadily across frames, clearly visible and trackable. Not lens flares or internal camera reflections. Lens flares mirror the position of the sun and respond to camera angle shifts. Here, the objects move independently of camera motion, maintain consistent shape and brightness, and do not correlate with any strong light source. Now, what are these things? There are a few very interesting things we can mention about them. That is not the first that this ambiguous behavior can be detected that strongly indicates that such events are deliberate and planned following a pre-scripted morphology. There are at least 3 forms of ambiguity there. The morphology of the objects, they are not clear-cut format, they don't look like spacecraft, yet they still maintain a consistent format. They seem to use deliberate paths. Still, they don't make turns, only when they are at a good distance. Once they are barely visible, then they make turns. One can only make sense if he or she pays attention, but with a tracker, then the maneuvers that seem very artificial make sense. The further they are, the freer they seem to move. Meanwhile, the nearer ones, those more visible and trackable, adhere to linear, almost indifferent crossings. This is not physics dictated by propulsion or drift. This is narrative performance. There is also the case for occlusion. When the object passes behind the MIR, it proves in a definitive manner that it has a considerable size. One can perceive that the objects are sizable, but the occlusion would reinforce this aspect. The shade of the objects is exactly like the MIR, so we can barely distinguish the difference. We can propose that there is a tension building. The only defense that NASA and the establishment have in this case is pretending it is not there. It can only pray for the complicity of the UFOs to not escalate further, to keep in this ambiguous arena where plausible deniability can still be played, where they provoke without fully disclosing. However, whoever has eyes to see can spot a gameplay being enacted. Nonetheless, the vast majority are still waiting for a voice of authority to confirm what their eyes are seeing. What is one more indication of herd behavior? Now I will call my friend to comment upon the case.
I am so glad you are using Martyn Stubbs footage, so underrated. For so long it was sitting there, maligned. But everything we have seen so far just proves that it shows the hard truth. There are more anomalies than we expected, and they defy NASA when they least expect.
As you can see, it is not difficult to perceive that we are before anomalies. Why we need a special envoy to state that.
It seems we have been brainwashed by the system. Institutions manage data. They tell us what counts as reality. When footage like this emerges, visually clear, behaviourally coherent, the machinery of denial have to be put in motion. The average viewer experiences a kind of induced schizophrenia. Their eyes perceive something unambiguous, but their conditioned cognition, trained for decades by ridicule, by deferral to experts, by the waiting for confirmation syndrome, begs for someone in a tie to say, yes, you saw it. That is why so many people put their hope not in themselves, in their cognitive capacity, but on a supposed benefic disclosure. This is cognitive dissonance engineered at scale. And those who do see, who are sane enough to believe their own senses, are often left alienated, pathologized, or folded into fringe categories. This is about narrative sovereignty. It's about who gets to name reality. As John Mack put, this is a battle for the ontology of the real.
Atlantis for TCS.
Discussion of UFOs in space from Dan Zarfati's book.
He's looking directly over at the station from the centerline camera mounted in the orbiter docking system.
If you liked the content, consider engaging.